Hi, everyone. My name is Brook Kitto, and I am a program coordinator here at Alzheimer's Services. This is a recording of our final presentation that's a part of our fall 2024 Making Sense of Sense series. And this is an in-person program that we're going to be doing all about creating your own caregiver binder. There's some really good resources in here that I want to mention. So we're going to go ahead and post a recording here on our YouTube as well so that people can reference it in the future. So today, what we're going to do is we are going to essentially create your own caregiver binder. If you are local to the Baton Rouge area and the greater Baton Rouge area within our service area, I have some of these within our office that we are happy to provide to you. And we'll fill it up with all of these documents that we'll talk about today. And then you are welcome to fill it out and use this as a resource for your family. So if you have any questions about what we discussed today, you're welcome to give us a call at our office at Alzheimer's Services of the Capital Area, 225-334-7494, or give me an email. My name is Brooke, programs3@alzbr.org. So before we get started in going through all of the materials that we're going to include within this binder, I briefly want to mention that we have an education conference coming up in January all about dementia risk reduction. So if that is something that you're interested in, you can find more information on our website, alzbr.org. Okie dokie. So what I'm going to first do is share my screen, and then we're going to go through all of the documents that are in our caregiver binder. Okay, good deal. Let's see. So here is our screen that we're going to be looking at, and this is our first page essentially of our caregiver binder. So tomorrow during our in-person meeting, everybody will receive their own little 1-inch binder and this little cover sheet that essentially just says that it's a caregiver binder. So the purpose of having one of these caregiver binders is to gather information that makes sense for your family and for you and your loved one that you care for, and to have all of that information in one place. Collecting, completing, and storing this information is essential in case of a medical emergency, a natural disaster, and simply just for your peace of mind. So we definitely encourage families to take the time to complete one of these and store this information in a safe space that is easily accessible, either for you if you and your loved one, have a medical emergency, or if, let's say, you go out of town and have some well-deserved caregiver respite, that your, whoever you choose to be the temporary caregiver for your loved one, they'll have all of the information already in one space. So the first little page is just saying that this is a designated space to store essential caregiver documents. Of course, some of this information will be sensitive, that will be kept within this binder. So just making sure that it is stored in an appropriate space and shared with the appropriate audiences. So the first little page that's in our caregiver binder is just a picture of our loved one. So having a current photo of our loved one is so important for not only disaster preparedness, but also, let's just say, if our loved one is, has elopes and we, need, unfortunately, to reach out to the police to alert that our loved one has wandered, at least we would have a space that we know we have a recent picture of them. And then also, let's say if we have a medical emergency and the ambulance has to come to our home or wherever to assist us with our loved one, it's always helpful to have a recent picture of our loved one. So this is just a nice little frame that you can paste a photo of your loved one. So there, of course, is ways that you can have a physical document of all of these things, which I highly encourage to have it physically, but also you can have all of these things digitally. So if you would like to have any of these forms that I'm talking about digitally, please reach out to us at Alzheimer's Services. We're happy to provide them to you. Okay. Now we're going to switch over to something called a caregiver organizer. So this is a guidebook that is created from careforagingparents.com. This is a free caregiver organizer that is available to anyone. And it's a guideline for just suggested materials for keeping, organizing documents for your loved one. So really use it as a guidebook. Disregard whatever forms don't fit you and add whatever forms you feel like are missing and things that are important to you in your caregiver journey and for your loved one. If you see that there are documents that maybe are not mentioned in this that really should be included in your binder, use this just as a guidebook. So we're going to go through this comprehensive list. The reason why I chose this caregiver organizer to include within our binder is it is very comprehensive. It has lots of information within this. So we're just going to go through it very briefly, and I'll give you a note on each of the pages. And you'll also notice that this is targeted primarily towards parents. And you'll see the term parents a lot in here, but of course, this type of caregiver organizer can be used for whoever and whoever you are caring for. So your spouse, your friend, yourself, if you are a person who has medical challenges and want to just have all of these documents organized in one space, which is very smart to do, change the language however you see fit. So the first little form, it goes over what's included within this document. The first page is all about key information. So having all of this information at a quick glance in front of your caregiver binder can benefit you to have all of this right at the tip of your hand. So while we want to be sensitive to where we put our loved one's social security numbers and, health care information and all of those things, having it in a space like this that's easily accessible, this is the place to do it. And so there's just some key information at the top there. And there's also a checklist of helpful things to locate. All of these, when we take on the task of caregiving, it really can feel like a mountain that's in front of us, and you almost don't know where to tackle it. And so this is just a nice little checklist to say, okay, do we know where all of these things are? Finding but also noting where information is stored can only help you in the future. I also have a couple of other things that we recommend within our office, but of course there's plenty of these things that you can find online, or I know that sometimes funeral homes can provide these types of resources for free as well. CPAs, financial planners usually provide information like this for free as well, which is information like this, where it's a little guidebook to keep all of your financial information, information about internet passwords, where your safety deposit box is kept, any safes, what's the code for the safes, things like that. So these are just some examples. We have a legacy planner here, and then there's also this big old textbook that we've usually used in years past called Get It Together, which is essentially just like a big guidebook of where to store things so that it's all in one place. So you can use something like this, which is a little bit more succinct in one little place, within your binder. But if you felt like you needed to have even more of an in-depth spot for all of your key documents, you can use something like a legacy planner or something like that to, and also keep within this caregiver binder. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about caregiver identification cards. I was actually just speaking with somebody who has been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, so quite a young person, and he's still driving. And so he feels as though he and his family feel like it is still safe for him to drive. And so he was asking about different safety concerns that he can have right now in this time period where he still does have that ability. So one of those suggestions would be to keep something like an emergency identification card on his person at all times. So in here, we have a few different things similar to that, but for our in-person folks tomorrow, I have them all printed out, ready to go in your wallet. But essentially it's this, what is on your screen. It's a medical ID card for your loved one's wallet, but then also your own. As a caregiver, we are responsible for our loved one, even when our loved one is not around us. So let's say if, for example, in the person that I was just speaking about, if they're still very independent in driving, but an emergency happens to you, that can greatly disrupt their orientation to where somebody is going to need to help you with that communication to that person with their safety, their regular day-to-day ability to assist with all of those things that you would normally assist for in the event that you were the person that was in the emergency. So having not only identification for that person, if they're still alone, doing errands on their own, taking walks on their own, driving on their own, having an identification for them, but also something for you as well, in case you are found injured or otherwise, unavailable. And then these are the backs of those cards. So this is just a printout version that you can print out, or we're happy to print you some too. Okay, next up, we have, of course, just medical information. Having these things like allergies written out in a very obvious space can be crucial for, of course, if it's a serious allergy, especially if you are not always the only person caring for your loved one. So let's say if you have in-home care or professional caregivers that come into your home that are going to be assisting with feeding your loved one and preparing food for your loved one, having things like allergies, very obviously stated multiple places, even if they live in a care facility, having the allergy stated very obviously is very important for their health. So some good info to have, again, at the very front of our caregiver binder. Some medication list is next. Also a great thing to have in case of a natural disaster, or if you do have to evacuate your home for whatever reason. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Weekly medication charts. This can be really helpful if your loved one is still managing their own medications and you just want to make sure that y'all are staying organized. Or if there is someone else like a professional caregiver that is responsible for administering and assisting with administering of medications to your loved one. So it's also a nice thing just to have in case you needed a log for that. Next up, we have some medical contacts. I also wanted to mention another form that we have, kind of similar to the medication log. Is what we have in here. It's just a general caregiver log, and I can have it on this little sheet. Yep, there it is. So this is a space to just record any significant information that you would want to remember. So either the person with dementia themselves, if they are, noticing things and they want to record in a specific space to bring up to their family, or if you have, again, professional caregivers coming into your home that are assisting, but you want a space to, have all of your information in one spot. This could be a more general list and, a nice space to keep that for just record keeping for your loved one. So if that medication list or the medication administration list might be a little too specific for you and your family, something like this possibly could help. All right. Also with medical contacts, obviously all of this is quite self-explanatory, but I do want to mention that if your loved one is qualified for hospice and currently a member on hospice, you would not necessarily be calling any of these other numbers in case of a medical emergency or a medical concern. You would only be calling the hospice number. So if your loved one is on hospice, making sure that their folder, their phone number is, heavily labeled all throughout the living environments in case of an emergency or a question, just making sure that we are staying up to date on who the best medical professional is to contact for our loved one. All right. Then, of course, here's the medical log, kind of similar to that caregiver log that I just showed, just a little bit more specific. So just another great thing to have. And these pages you can, adapt to whatever need that you have, copy them as many times as you want, print them off and, edit them however. Next up, we have a home safety checklist. This is it's a hefty list, but it's quite a general list. If you are interested in more of a room by room safety list, we actually have one of those within our resource library that we're happy to get to you. So a home safety checklist, just something always good to consider, especially if, let's say with the holidays coming up, you're going to stay at a loved one's home. They may not be as mindful of all of those different safety concerns that you are in your regular home environment. So just something to keep in mind. Next up is a community service list. We, of course, at Alzheimer's Services within our resource library have many, many different lists of all of the community resources that we have available to the greater Baton Rouge area. But let's say that you have specific lists or specific community services that you regularly communicate with. Like if your loved one comes to Charlie's Place, or if your loved one receives Meals on Wheels through a particular council on aging, it could help to just have those very specific phone numbers and contact people all listed within the one space. Again, to where if you are maybe temporarily unavailable or taking a vacation or something, the person that is responsible in care for your loved one can more easily fill the shoes, so to say. Next up, there is an employment agreement. This is, again, one of those things this caregiver organizer is very diverse with the things that it offers, but this would be more, I would imagine, if you were hiring a professional caregiver privately to come into your home. This would be a nice thing to just have all of our expectations written out in one space. If you are hiring an agency or a company to come and provide that care for your loved one, a professional caregiver care, then this may not be appropriate, this document, but you can keep whatever your contract is with that organization and that contract that you have in place, with that organization. You can also keep that in this binder so that you always know where your stuff is. I also, whenever we are talking about this, I wanted to mention respite reimbursement very briefly. So respite reimbursement is a program that we have here at Alzheimer's Services. Our little form looks like this if you're unfamiliar with it. And respite reimbursement is a program that we have that can help financially with the cost of hiring a caregiver, a professional caregiver. So whether that is through an agency or someone privately, we do have the funding and resources to help financially support your loved one in that. So briefly, just wanted to mention another program that we do here. And again, could be a great space to keep all of your receipts and things like that for respite reimbursement in this caregiver binder. Another thing that's mentioned is a caregiver contact list. It could be really helpful if you have either, let's say, around-the-clock care for your loved one, or you have 6 siblings that are coordinating care and taking turns with your loved one. It could be helpful to have all of y'all's information in one list, just in case. So this is a good space for that. This is a daily log. There are many of these that you can find online, or you could even make your own of, what is the ideal daily schedule for your loved one? If, as many people with dementia do thrive on routine, it could help to even much more basic than this necessarily, but you could have a log of sorts created for either yourself and your loved one to just stay on task throughout the day. Or if you are having others come in and help, it could just, help with some direction and expectations. So this is just a nice idea of that. Next up, this whoever did this, this family is extremely organized, and this would be if between family members, y'all document who is responsible for what. So a lot of families will designate these things necessarily just through verbal agreement, but if you would thrive better in a contract of sorts, this is a good example of that. Next up, we have just some legal, financial, and legal contacts. This is something that normally would be kept in like that legacy planner, like we were talking about, or a lot of different banks or certified financial planners and things like that can provide a space where you can keep your login and passwords and things like that. But for a simplified version, this is great. Keeping whoever is, y'all's go-to people, this is a great place to keep that. This is another thing where you can, budget. That is something that we focus on a lot within this series, of course, is the cost of caregiving, the cost of, healthcare and paying for long-term care expenses, things like that. So could also be a nice space to keep all of those things. A monthly budget. Most of us are on a budget, especially older adults with fixed incomes. This could be a nice thing just to either keep up month to month if your loved one is still managing their own finances and seeing, having a baseline of exactly how well that's going, or, fraud prevention, just making sure that you're staying on top of all of that, as to intercept fraud whenever that occur, if that would ever occur, or just to get a good estimate of what our monthly expenses are. And then the last thing on this caregiver organizer is end of life wishes. Of course, this is always a great topic to have and a great conversation to have with our loved ones as early as possible. And not just our loved ones that have dementia, but any of our loved ones, our friends, our close companions, our partners. We want to make sure that we know their general views and their values for the end of life process. So, this is also something to, go over and keep as a guide. Another thing that we have within our caregiver binders for tomorrow is the 5 wishes. This is quite a simplified version of, all of the decisions that can be made for someone in the end of life process, but it is, a nice little bite-sized version of those big conversations and a little guide to help with those big conversations. So we do also have these in our office if you are interested in those or interested in conversations about end of life in general. We are happy to have those with you. Okay, a couple other things that I want to mention is, let's see, I can bounce off of my shared screen now. Okay, and last few things that I want to mention that we're going to have in person are these emergency information stickers. So this would be perfect for if your loved one is still driving, or if you are a caregiver for someone and maybe a sole caregiver or the only person locally that's caring for your loved one, is to keep these in your car. So these are a part of the Yellow Dot program within Louisiana. And essentially it is a little sticker and folder to keep within your glove box and in your car of medical information. And so This is something that first responders and like emergency personnel will look for whenever, or if you get in a car accident or have a medical event or something within your car, they will know to look for this. So we also have these provided. Now, oh shucks, now I have to go back to my shared screen. Let's see. There we go. My next little form that I wanted to talk to y'all about is emergency preparedness. And so this is another great, in light of, this binder is everything is forward looking. Everything is, we are, trying to prepare as much as possible. So in one of those, in that same light is emergencies. So whether that is a natural disaster or just a medical emergency, it is important to, think about those things, have a plan, especially if your loved one has dementia, where you have very specific special needs for, in the event of an emergency or an evacuation or something like that. So there's a little sheet in here of just things to consider for emergency preparedness, like discussing a plan with your loved ones, research where to go, where special needs shelters typically are. If you are like us in the path of many hurricanes, maybe having a identified plan of whose home, a friend, a family would you travel to in the event that you would need to leave, and possibly a hotel or special needs shelters. Also something that you're welcome to call us about. We do keep a list of special needs shelters within the greater Baton Rouge area during hurricane season. Discussing a plan for any other responsibilities like your pets or your home, making sure that your home is emergency prepared. Like if you have a generator or your loved one has is reliant on an oxygen machine, making sure that you have all of that thought out ahead of time so that when something happens, you're not out of luck. And then a caregiver checklist go bag. So this would be a bag of essentials that you would need with you if you had to up and leave. So kind of thinking in light like a hospital bag. If you are ready to go have a baby, hopefully within the month or so before you go have a baby, you get your hospital bag ready. Similarly to that, except it is for you and your loved one with dementia. And all care facilities establish something similar to this where they have, necessary items available to go whenever, if evacuation or emergency strikes, things like that. And if sheltering in place is not a desirable option for you. So these are just some things to check off on your list to keep in your go bag, or at least keep at a accessible to you in the event of an emergency. Just two more things to talk about. I will go now to the Safe Return form. This is another program that we have at Alzheimer's Services, where we will pay for, I believe it's a year of service for this program called Safe Return and Medic Alert. And essentially it is a medical ID band, all of these. So we will help in paying for this service. And this is a fantastic, preparedness thing for our loved one. If let's say they don't carry a wallet and they won't carry their identification with them, this could be something they could wear, either a necklace or a bracelet, and it could just help in case there is a elopement, a disaster, something like that. And then the very, very last thing that I wanted to talk about is our these cute little cards that have been recommended to me before. And it is the size of a business card, and it says, "The person I am with has Alzheimer's. Please be patient. Thank you." And then it has it in English and in Spanish. And This is something great to bring with you if your loved one may be sensitive to you talking about their diagnosis at, let's say, a restaurant. You can just simply hand this to your waitress or waiter, or a dentist's office or wherever. You can just simply provide this little card to them, and it doesn't have to be a conversation topic. It just kindly encourages people that y'all's circumstance is a little bit different, and we appreciate patience and kindness wherever possible. So I have a stack of these cards within our office, happy to provide these to any family, and a great thing to keep within your caregiver binder. I think that's it. So that was rapid fire through our caregiver binder. Last few things that I wanted to mention that I did not include in my sample binder, but could be included, and other things to consider to include within your binder could be a La Poste, which is a Louisiana physician order for scope of treatment. So if you have one of those signed by your physician, a La Poste could be something to consider to include within your binder, a copy of it. Your power of attorney documents. It is recommended that anytime you have a dementia diagnosis, or as we're aging, as we are responsible for our loved ones, it is important to have power of attorney documents for both financial and medical. So having copies of those documents, or even the documents within this binder, could help. Any living will or advance directive information, trust and financial advisor information, copies of your health insurance cards, or any other insurances that you utilize, like long-term care insurance, your life insurance benefit, anything like that that you think about and you say, oh, where is that? Maybe keep a copy of it in this binder. And then lastly, possibly if your loved one is a veteran, having any veterans information within this binder, their discharge paperwork, if they receive aided attendance or any veteran benefits, that information also can be kept within this binder. So that is rapid fire of different suggestions of things to keep within your caregiver binder. If you have questions about any of this, please feel free to reach out to us. We are so happy to help you at Alzheimer's Services. Thank you so much.